we've just heard the Prime Minister name 21 unnamed islands of Andaman and Nicobar after 21 Paramvir Chakra awardees. The Prime Minister also unveiled the national memorial dedicated to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose on Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose Dweep Island. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's Jayanti, of course, is observed as the Parakram Divas every year, as it is this year as well. And on the occasion of the same, 21 unnamed islands of Andaman as well as Nicobar have now been renamed by the Prime Minister. We just heard that speech by the Prime Minister as well. Lots of takeaways from that. Joining us on the broadcast, we have an eminent panel that's going to help us make sense of what's just happened. It's going to help us put into perspective what it is that the Prime Minister has said and what this is going to mean for the country, not only nationally, but also internationally. Joining us on the broadcast, we have Group Captain V.N. Jha. We also have Major Mohammad Ali Shah, Sanjeev Srivastav, Group Captain U.K. Devnath, Major General A.J.B. Jaini, as well as Brigadier S.K. Chatterjee. If I can take my first question from you, Major General Jaini, sir, we've just heard the Prime Minister speak, and just as he was speaking, lots of takeaways. Firstly, he's talked at great length about the Azad Hind Fauj. Sir, what do you make of the fact that, the islands earlier, of course, were renamed after Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Now we also have a memorial dedicated to him on the very islands where Azad Hind Fauj, took over, and this was the first island that, in fact, India had officially gained control of from the British.
Yes, Parinidhi. Firstly, thank you for having me on your show. It's always a pleasure being anchored by you. Let me start by saying that we must not only learn from history, but we must respect history. Yes, in this particular scenario, you will see that the Andaman Nicobar Islands, right from the Second World War onwards, had that historical significance where the INA landed and they flew the first flag of the Indian national government. Of course, it also has the significance where the Britishers played hell into our freedom fighters. You have the cellular jail where people rotted their whole life. You have Savarkar and others, so many who have spent in those dark, dingy cells, bearing all the atrocities of the British Empire. So to now amalgamate those islands and give them the historical significance of being India, I think is a very, very big takeaway. I would say the second thing is, it goes very well saying that any country which respects its soldiers and women has a great future. It always will rise to the pinnacle of glory. In our country, we need to specify and lay emphasis on this, that soldiers, whether they be our veterans, whether they be our Veer martyrs, they or the serving soldiers, they need to be respected. And of course, the women. Any country which does not respect its soldiers and women is bound to be doomed someday. So that's the second takeaway. And the third takeaway, I would not go into the politics of it as to why all this recognition and all this was not done earlier. After all, it is a government take. What government feels is right, they do. And whatever is happening, we soldiers feel very, very happy about it. I have been to Andamans on 3 occasions, having led the National Defence College group, and as a student member there, I've been down up to Indra Point and Havelock and other islands which are now renamed the Greater Andaman, the Little Andaman, and all those, including that island in which there is a volcano. And taking the geopolitics into account, the other takeaway is that the more we try to show Indianization of those islands, the more we try to make them Indian, the more we try to tell the world that these islands are ours, we will be subduing the voices of countries like China and others who still consider, have dirty eyes towards Andaman. So when you talk of the Divas today, Netaji's birthday on 23rd, and when you talk of that word Param.
Yes, sir.
It is the supreme sacrifice which people have made,
Yes,
and
sir.
of course, it goes without saying that all those people who got those Paramvir chakras, they did it not for nothing. They did it for the sake of the country. They did it for the izzat of their flag. They did it for the An, Ban, Shan and Naam, Namak, Nishan of their units and formations, their commanders. And they gave their supreme life. So their stories are galore. I mean, one could write books on those 21 brave Paramvir chakras. Each has a saga of its own, Pari.
Absolutely, sir. And you've very rightly said the fact that it's being named after our national heroes. So not only are we paying a tribute to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who in history has had such a major role to play, but also after the independence of India, our soldiers that have sacrificed their lives, those soldiers are also now being given, the kind of recognition, a sort of everlasting recognition that they so deserve. Thank you so much, Major General Jaini, for giving us your perspective. If I can also rope in Brigadier S.K. Chatterjee, who's also joining us on the broadcast. Brigadier, sir, as far as you are concerned, how do you see this move? We've also just heard the Prime Minister, Brigadier Chatterjee, and the Prime Minister speaking, said something that stuck with me. He said, one mission, one vision, one nation. That's the idea with which Subhash Chandra Bose operated. That's the idea with which our Paramvir Chakra awardees operated. And that's the idea with which we're renaming the islands now.
Look, what I would say, a country like ours, which has a huge cultural background, which has a huge civilizational background, and a huge also list of heroes who have really fought for this country after independence, before independence and after independence. Well, as far as we are concerned, these things, when it crystallizes into monuments, into such things like an island being actually named for each one of them, the Paramvir Chakras that we're talking about today, I think these are concrete examples which are there for the current generation and future generations to see and draw two things. One is motivation, the second is commitment. These men who died there, these 21 Paramvir Chakras, most of them were posthumous, who died over there or who fought over there that bravely, were driven by these factors of being committed and being courageous. And that's what a nation requires if it wants to survive in today's world. If you are reluctant as the younger man today who's supposed to be taking on the responsibility of those who are no longer there with us, or those who are there with us but are veterans today, well, this country can never hold its own flag high. It will hold its own flag high only when for these younger people to also learn, we have to create this monument. I do not know why they were not created earlier, but I call each one of these islands a monument today, which will inspire the coming generations ahead. And of course, it's an occasion for the whole nation to celebrate, to recall the kind of past that we have had. It's only through the study of history that we can possibly give ourselves a greater tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brigadier Chatterjee, for, giving us your perspectives as well. If I can rope in Group Captain UK Devnath, Group Captain Devnath was just telling us a short while ago how, he belongs to West Bengal. And, Group Captain Devnath, in fact, was also saying that he feels very proud of what is happening here. The Prime Minister, while speaking, it's interesting, Group Captain Devnath said that the people, the soldiers rather, are Jawans that have been that the islands are being named after belong from the length and breadth of the country. So, right from the south up until the north, from the east to the west, the 21 names that we have added are from almost all of the states that we can think of.
Oh yes, Paridhi, there is no doubt that Indian Army, Air Force and Navy, they represent the entire country. We are one of the few armies, armed forces in the world where we take pride that every platoon, every regiment, every squadron has representative from each state, each district of India. In our Air Force, I can tell you that if you go to any Air Force squadron, you will find young, vibrant Madrasi from Tamil Nadu. You will find a Sikh soldier. you will find a proud soldier, airman from Nagaland. You will find a Pahari, a Dogra, and all of them have only one aim. They want the best. They want to give the best to the nation, to their unit, to their squadron. Every air warrior, every technician, his sole aim is that whatever nation has given to his squadron, a fighter aircraft, a radar, a missile, he wants to keep that in optimum operational condition so that if required, that equipment which is given with love and affection by taxpayer is available and utilized when the time comes to use the weapon system. We are a great nation. The government of India has taken many steps to honor armed forces. All that I can tell through your channel to people of India is we in armed forces take great pride that we have representatives from all religion, from all part of country, from each language. And best thing is that they are poor soldiers and they are soldiers who come from rich families. They are soldiers who come from the families where there is a martial tradition, and they are soldiers who come from first time in their family. They
Yes,
have
sir.
joined Indian Armed Forces as a soldier. Yes, Paridhi?
Not only you, sir, all of us, in fact, feel great pride when we talk about our forces. I myself come from a family where, my grandfather had once served. So it's not just you, sir. I myself am, it's a proud moment, sir. It's a proud moment for not just, the eminent soldiers that have served on the panel that are sitting with us, but for the entire country. If I can also rope in Commodore Praveen, who's also joining us on the broadcast. I'm sorry, sir, I may not have gotten your name correctly. Commodore Praveen Rajpal, sorry, is joining us on the broadcast as well. Commodore Rajpal, how do you view what has just happened, sir? We're renaming our islands. We're renaming our islands after Paramvir Chakra awardees, sir. Do you think, sir, that this gives some sort of a morale booster to the young people that are watching these broadcasts, to young people that are watching all of this take place in history? Do you think that they watch this renaming and they, certainly get motivated to join the forces, to be able to serve the country in whatever way possible?
Absolutely, Paridhi. I 100% agree with you. It motivates the youngsters today, and with the new scheme of Agniveer and things like that coming in, we are actually on a path to changing the armed forces totally. We are in a transformational change, and I'm sure this will help the youngsters to, gain confidence in the forces. Another major event that took place today, along with this Parakram Divas, which I may like to highlight to your viewers, is the commissioning of a submarine INS Wagir. Commissioned at Mumbai today in the naval dockyard. This vessel was delivered to the Navy about a couple of months ago and commissioned today in the shortest possible time. I think the vessel started sailing in February, March last year for her trials, and within about 8 to 9 months, she's been commissioned, which is a wonderful achievement by MDL, by the crew, and of course the agency which have supported the thing. I'm very hopeful that the next submarine, also the sixth one and the last one of the series, will get commissioned very soon. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Commodore Rajpal. Of course, the submarine that has just been inducted has also been something that we've been talking about on the broadcast here. You very rightly said, sir, the fact that this has been made in record time, the fact that it has been inducted in record time is also something that, and the fact that it has been done on Parakram Divas also is something, to take away from here. But, coming back to the discussion that we were having, and if I can quickly rope in Major General Jaini also here, sir. The same question that I asked Commodore Rajpal as well. Do you think that when events like this happen, when we name islands, when we dedicate islands, or even the fact that we now have a statue of sorts of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose at Kartavya Path, the fact that we pay so much tribute, the fact that we remember our history so fondly, so do you think that gives some sort of a morale booster to young people that are watching all of this transpire? Do you think, for instance, our Agniveers that are now going to be in the services, do you think it's going to be a morale booster for them as well?
Yes, Pari, you are very, very right. I want to take a simile. When you can have roads and parks and buildings in the name of netas and politicians, then why can't you have certain landmarks in the name of those brave soldiers who gave their supreme sacrifice for the sake of the nation and its flag? So when you call it a Paramvir, a Param Divas, it is actually the supreme Param, and it will give definite motivation to the people, because when soldiers see names, embossed on the markers of those places where the names of the brave heroes are embossed. When I go around Delhi, I find Hoshiyar Singh Magh and Shaitan Singh Magh. Oh, you feel, ये था कोई बंदा यार जिसने इस देश के लिए अपनी जान दी. So, and the fellow gets a urge, he gets that adrenaline in his nerves that if I ever get a chance to do the same, I will do it. So it's a motivator, and the more of it we do, I feel it will be lesser and lesser. So we should take this as a good example of these 21 islands being named. ठीक है, they may be unmanned today, but tomorrow we will have some development on that. Tomorrow we will have some population going and settling down there, some development picking up, some roads, establishments coming up there. If nothing else, radar stations. And then these islands will continue to be named by the name of our Veer heroes. So those heroes are there now. And they are right there in the middle of the Bay of Bengal and at the head of the Indian Ocean, telling the world that we are here. And not only just we the brave, the bravest of the brave.
Sir, do you think that this also sets a precedent then going forward? Other places that still are named after our colonial past, do you think that this then gives some sort of a scope to be able to rename those as well, to be able to reflect on the Indian history in order to give names to these historic places, locations, margs like you've said? Do you think this sets a precedent, sir?
On that account, Pari, I have my own view. It may be a revolutionary view, it may be a non-conformist view, but I love to respect history. And those who don't learn by history or from history are bound to repeat it. You see, whatever is historical on the ground must remain historical. Just putting cement on that and renaming it something else will not remove the history. If there was an Akbar Road or if there was an Aurangzeb Road, there was an Akbar in this country. There was an Aurangzeb in this country. Good, bad or indifferent, that's the part of the history of this country. You may cherish that history, you may hate that history. You may like to read it, you may not like to read it. But you can't change it, Pari. You can't change it. Therefore, just by changing the name of a road or a building, I personally feel it has no meaning except symbolism.
Okay, all right. Let me also then rope in Major Muhammad Ali Shah, who's still with us on the broadcast. Major Shah, do you agree, sir? Do you think that renaming and naming is just an exercise, and the fact remains that it doesn't really make a difference in the larger sense? Or do you think that naming and renaming has its own significance, especially when we get, especially when we let go of names that reek of a colonial past, of a colonial history?
No, I think it's very important to let go of the names of the colonial past. It gives a psychological effect to us, and we should remember the people who have actually served us, who have served the nation. And it's very unfortunate sometimes, Pariti, we tend to remember people who are not there with us anymore. We should also remember people who are there with us right now existing. Like, for example, we have a couple of Paramvir Chakras alive in service, and one of them is in service. One of them have been my Ustad, my instructor in academy, who trained me to become an officer. I'm talking about Subedar Major Sanjay Kumar, who's now at the NDA, who's training cadets over there. And of course, Honorary Captain Yogendra Singh Yadav is there, who is very, very closely known to me, in fact. Subedar Major Bana Singh is there. In fact, so it is very important to recognize these legends, and because they have actually risked their, and they have lived up. Many of the officers who are, in fact, all my seniors over here, we all have taken one common oath, which binds us together, the Chetwood Credo, which says the safety, honor, welfare of your country comes first, always and every time. The honor, welfare, and comfort of the men you command comes next. Your own ease, comfort, and safety comes last, always and every time. So yes, it is very, very important. As they say, what's in the name, right? Some people say, what's in the name? But there is a lot in the name. Like if I go through a road of, say, Honorary Captain Yogendra Singh Yadav Road, I'll feel very proud. I'm like, okay, he is still alive, very much with us in flesh and blood and spirit. And yes, we're going through the Param, as Brigadier, as General Jani rightly said. Param, the supreme, the ultimate. For example, the Param Vishish Seva Medal. It is the ultimate award for service, for the highest, for the kind of service. Paramvir Chakra, Veer. There is Mahavir Chakra, there is Veer Chakra. Now there is Param. The Param is the supreme. There's nothing beyond that. And as you were talking about the story of Vijay Somnath Sharma in Badgaam, in 1947, in fact, it was the month of November 1947 when the Lashkar, thousands of Lashkars had come and there was only one company of 4 Kumaon. And that company gave a befitting reply. The patrols were set out by Brigadier Sen, which were to return by 1400 hours, but then by 1300 hours again, there were different patrols assigned. But here, Major Somnath Sharma single-handedly, who continued giving orders and went on to post, even despite the fact that a shell of an ammunition shell which burst, and he was wounded grievously, but he continued passing orders. He continued passing orders till his last breath. And that was the supreme sacrifice he made. He was martyred in action for our supreme, for our nation. So yes, we remember our heroes. And when we talk about the naming and renaming, well, it gives me immense pride to see roads named after our war heroes, our battle heroes, of army officers. These are the true heroes. That is why it is said to choose our heroes carefully. In fact, you never know who you would end up idolizing. So people say movie stars is that, but it is the actual heroes. The actual heroes are the men in uniform, Paridhi.
Absolutely, sir. The men and the women in uniform.
Yes.
If I can also quickly rope in Group Captain VN Jha, who's also with us, sir. I see that you have something to say. While you say that, sir, I also have one more question for you. You know, more often than not, this naming and renaming sort of boils down to just politics. You know, names of politicians, of leaders that have served the country. But the fact that we're naming 21 islands after Paramvir Chakra awardees, sir, your take?
Absolutely, Paridhi. Look, I slightly differ from what General Jaini said. When you rename for honor of our legendaries, who are our legends, maybe living or maybe dead, it's always good. You know, that gives you the feeling that, yes, we had our own legends here on this land. And on that front, if there is a renaming of anything of the past, which doesn't have much of relevance or which reminds you of some painful part of history, it's better not to remember that. It's fine. That person will always remain in the history, whether for good or bad. But when you have such legendaries named on the roads, on the buildings, on the universities, colleges, or any other thing, you know, that gives you pride that, yes, we had such people among us. So it's always good to have names which is of our own legends. That is my view. Now, Paridhi, I wanted to tell you something more. Renaming of these 21 islands have been done. In Car Nicobar, in Andaman Islands, of the about, I think, some 570 odd, 572, I think, islands are there. Out of that, only 37 are inhabited today, and some with just two digits people. Now, here is a time that now attention of entire nation is on the Andaman. General Jaini said that, yes, some development also should happen. I will go a step further. You know, this part of island is something which has got a strategic relevance.
Yes, sir.
From there, you are absolutely looking into the neck or the opening of the Malacca Strait. Now, right now, there is no air base, there is no joint command. I think earlier on your channel, only about a year and a half back, we had discussed on your channel that in case if the government brings up a strategic command in that area, in that tip part of the southern part of the Greater Nicobar, then any of the IF aircraft which has got a radar of 500 kilometers onto its scope, the moment it is airborne, that entire entire opening of the Malacca Strait and the entire Indian Ocean is within the range of our services. So one army base, one naval base, and one air base at that particular thing, it will be, it will have a huge significance of the military strategy there in that area. Besides, today Mali is known only for the tourism. Now, our own these 21 islands and more have got absolute beauty. It is untouched blue waters, both shallow and deep. Shallow water can be utilized for tourism, for a lot of things that we have. Deep water can be utilized for all commercial purposes that we have. So I compliment Modi government of India for putting the attention of nation onto these islands. I will wish that these islands are developed for tourism, for defense, and for the better economy of the people of that place as well as of the country. So it is a great occasion. From here onwards, I will hope that Government of India also gives the impetus to various ministry of its own to develop those islands. That's absolutely important because right now the entire economy of that is being governed by the mainland. Why not have their own economy? They should be self-sustenance, not only self-sustenance. It should generate the type of tourism that like Maldives have got.
Yes.
So all these ingredients are available there. It is only to give the attention and permit the people to develop those facilities, and in the coming months, years, and decades, that great island will be, Nicobar Island will be a huge place of commerce, huge place of defense, and it will boost the national economy as well, Paridhi.
Group Captain Shah, some very interesting points, sir, that you've made there, especially with regards to the strategic importance that Andaman and Nicobar have. The very fact that they do extend the country's landmass as well as maritime borders right till the mouth of the Malacca Strait, like you rightly said, sir. So then, talking about strategy, let's rope in Sanjeev Srivastava, who's an international affairs expert. Sir, do you think that, nationally, of course, the buzz has been made. Nationally, of course, we're all rejoicing, reminiscing the value that was shown by Netaji, that was shown by our Paramvir Chakra awardees. But so internationally, do you think that then this also puts focus on Andaman and Nicobar Islands, given the fact that China, at least in the Indian Ocean region, has begun a lot of exercises?
Certainly, this Andaman Nicobar Island region is strategically very, very significant. And it is becoming enormously significant also because of the various negative expansionist designs which China is having with regard to Indian Ocean region as well. China is attempting to dominate the entire Indo-Pacific region, and obviously Indian Ocean region, China is having a very close eye on. They sometimes send their, spy ships, sometimes, submarines, sometimes various activities in the smaller island nations like Maldives, and they are trying to, create kind of a debt trap situation for the various smaller countries. So I think we need to have our robust presence in the Indian Ocean region, which we already have, but we have to just maintain it, enhance it. Our defense posture, our position of strength must be enhanced in the Indian Ocean region, and in that regard, Andaman Nicobar Island will play the most critical part. Malacca Strait, the kind of dilemma which China is having with regard to Malacca Strait, that dilemma should be deepened, and that can be done only through enhancing our robust defense posture, our position of strength in the Andaman Nicobar Island. When we are naming these islands, unnamed islands on the name of our Paramvir Chakra awardees, we are also giving a message to adversaries like China that our strategic culture, our defense preparedness is very intense and very deep. with regard to this region as well. A lot of work already has been done to have a tri-service command, and I'm sure that our entire positioning in the Andaman Nicobar Island will be further enhanced, further strengthened with several other initiatives. But giving this, let me also, Paridhi, let me just say here that it is very important to learn from history. Those nations who have not learned from history, those nations, those who have forgotten their war heroes, their leaders, often are doomed. And I think we must never repeat this mistake. There are several war heroes, there are several leaders who have contributed enormously and sacrificed their lives for the cause of this nation. If they are not giving their due respect, if they are not honored, then I think their lives are wasted. And that is the duty of this nation and the duty of all of us to honor them, remember them, commemorate them, and every time, whenever their birthdays are there, whenever their contributions are supposed to be remembered, we must remember them. I think there have been various characters, all kind of negative characters are also very much there in history. Those characters are obviously condemned characters, but those who have contributed for this nation, those who have contributed for the humanity, they must be glorified. And that is what I would like to say, that we must always, respect, honor, remember those who have contributed enormously for the progress of this nation, for the progress of humanity.
Absolutely,
and those
sir.
who have contributed negatively for this nation, or they have done all sorts of various negative acts, I think they are not to be remembered. They need to be condemned. So I think that is what we must have a very clear vision. I am very confident that Government of India will take several such initiatives, like naming of this island in future also. I think our war heroes deserve the highest respect. As my friend Major Shah very rightly mentioned, they are real heroes. I mean, we see various movies, etc., but these are the real heroes.
Absolutely, sir.
Who must be, remembered and honored.
Absolutely, sir. So then, talking still about strategy, of course, it's been named after our heroes. It's a tribute, it's an everlasting tribute to our national heroes, because, of course, once named, the islands are then going to bear the name of our Paramvir Chakra awardees for, as long as they're changed again. So that, of course, is something that is already happening. But, talking strategy, and if I can rope in Commodore Rajpal here, sir, as far as the Andaman and Nicobar are concerned, they of course are very, very important because they're important for India's Act East policy, but they're also important in the Indian Ocean region. So imagining that there were at least 21 islands up until now that did not have a name at all, and the fact that they're now going to have a name, how do you think this works as far as strategy is concerned, as far as India's might in the Indian Ocean region itself is concerned? So do you think that naming of these islands, the fact that they've now been highlighted, is going to give some sort of strategic boost as well in any sense?
Absolutely, Paridhi. I couldn't agree with you more on this. As one of the panelists just now said, that Malacca Straits, which is a opening to the South China Sea, and it is time that we start controlling it now. And you would probably, or the viewers would know, it's about 10 to 15 years ago when we had a command, the Far Eastern Command, which was formed in the Andaman and Nicobar Island, that showed the intent of the government in controlling the islands and the area in and around that place. And now, of course, we have a proper command there with this renaming of the islands going into it. It just shows the intent of the government that they're really serious about it, and they need to control the Malacca Straits, especially the piracy there, with the Chinese ships coming into the Indian Ocean. And as I said earlier to your viewers also, the submarines that we are commissioning now are going to control those areas. There is no doubt in that. The renaming, of course, is the best thing that the government could do on the Parakram Divas Day.
Colonel Rajpal, if I can also take one more follow-up question from you, sir. So when we talk about these islands, the fact that they've been named now, is that going to make any sort of difference as far as the Navy cooperation in the region is concerned? Is it going to ease naval cooperation, or is it not going to have any sort of impact on that front?
Why not? Renaming is definitely going to give a big boost to the people who are going to be there, they are going to be recognized. They know that they have, the government is there with them now, and the support is there. Earlier, these islands were just named something by numbers, or probably most of them didn't even have a name. And now, when our people are there serving in those inhabited islands, we know that we are being supported by every effort in the government, and we know that the government is with us, and we will. I mean, our forces are definitely there now, and will in the next couple of years you would see a huge change in that area, where these ships, Chinese vessels, which keep coming into the Indian Ocean, will be fully monitored by us.
Absolutely, and we in fact just saw visuals that were coming in from Port Blair, where Home Minister Shah is, and that ceremony, of course, still continuing to take place. The Prime Minister, very shortly, viewers, has also spoken about, on the occasion of Parakram Divas, naming 21 islands in Andaman and Nicobar. If I can also rope in Brigadier Chatterjee here, who's been kind enough to wait for his turn. But Brigadier Chatterjee, how do you see this? If we talk about strategy, if we talk about what are the possibilities that the naming of these islands now brings into the picture? If you can just help us understand, sir. What are the various possibilities in terms of defense?
Right. Let's talk about strategy in that case, and we'll go to the influence of naming these islands later on the strategy later on. Look, as far as strategy is concerned, like the naval officer just before me had spoken, that there was the Far Eastern Command, and now we have a regular tri-service command over there. We have air force resources, we have naval resources, we have army resources, and this is one of the first functional territorial tri-service command that we have. So a lot has been done in terms of strategy. We are aware that the threat from China is not just in the South China Sea, that it is spread to the Indian Ocean also, and it's a cause for concern for Quad, the quadrilateral of us, US, Australia and UK. So there is a requirement for us to focus on the Indian Ocean, because we see a lot of naval vessels, hydrographic vessels, Chinese vessels, which come in through the Malacca and who are actually doing the survey of Indian Ocean, which is very much required for operation of their submarines tomorrow. So obviously we've got to be strong over there. But you can't just say no to a Chinese vessel operating there altogether, because it's beyond your, let's say, coastal limits. It's beyond the 12 nautical miles. It's somewhere in your EEZ perhaps, 300 kilometers away from your shores. So they will do it, but you have to at least be able to follow their activities and then carry on with whatever countermeasures are to be taken by the Navy or the command as such at Port Blair. So there is a strategic reason, and of course, like it's been talked about, that we are at the mouth of Malacca through this island, and the Malacca is the basic channel through which ships from the South China Sea, that includes Chinese ships, which will come in. So we can keep an eye on them over there. And tomorrow, as far as blocking is concerned, of course, that's a very major operation. But as far as blocking Chinese ships is concerned, it can be thought of, and we have the geographical advantage of an island being there from which to operate. So that's that. Now, as far as the effect on the strategy by renaming these islands and multilateral naval exercises in that area, well, again, I think that's very well pointed out, that when people come over here, people from other countries come in their ships to do exercise with our navies in this particular area, it will start gradually settling into their head that this is got an Indian background, an Indian root. This particular island, it dates back to 1950 when they had a Paramvir Chakra awarded to Major Somnath Sharma. It will get associated with such things and get embedded in their mind that this is entirely an Indian territory and the Indians have the right over it. I think strategy-wise and reinforcing strategy into the minds of people who come over here for exercises from other forces will definitely occur. And when we go forward with this naming ceremony, beyond this naming ceremony, I think there will be economic development over there. There will be more tourism to these islands. That itself will generate certain amount of revenue. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but Andaman Nicobar Islands becoming self-sufficient in terms of revenue by relying primarily on tourism as also fisheries, etc., other resources are there, I think it's very much possible if we have planned development to follow up.
All right, thank you so much, Brigadier Chatterjee, for giving us your views. Before we take this conversation forward, let's once again listen in to what it was that the Prime Minister said as far as the lost history of Andaman and Nicobar Islands is concerned. Let's listen in.
आज 21वीं सदी का ये समय देख रहा है कि कैसे जिन नेताजी सुभाष को आजादी के बाद भुला देने का प्रयास हुआ, आज देश उन्हीं नेताजी को पल पल याद कर रहा है। अंडमान में जिस जगह नेताजी ने सबसे पहले तिरंगा फहराया था, वहां आज गगनचुंबी तिरंगा आजाद हिंद फौज के पराक्रम का गुणगान कर रहा है। पूरे देश में और देश के कोने कोने से जब लोग यहां आते हैं तो समंदर किनारे लहराते तिरंगों को देखकर उनके दिलों में देशभक्ति का रोमांच भर जाता है।
So we've just heard what it was that the Prime Minister said as far as renaming of the islands, of course, is concerned. If I can quickly rope in Group Captain V.N. Jha, who's still with us on the broadcast. Group Captain Jha, you just heard the Prime Minister speaking about, the fact that Andaman and Nicobar has now been given, has been given renewed importance. Sir, what would you like to say with regards to this soundbite that we've just heard of the Prime Minister?
Thank you, Paridhi. What PM said was obviously from as a head of state that he has conveyed to the nation that this is what was expected to be done and this is what has been done. I'll go a step further. Now the beginning has been made to put those islands into the limelights. It has come to the limelights. Now it is for the nation, all wings of the government as well as the NGOs and the private agencies to develop those. A short while I was listening to Commodore, I think his name was Rajpal. I'll just remind him, there is a magazine called The Counter Views. Last month, there was an article, Indian Navy comes on the path of glory. And in that particular article, the name and the development and the new acquisitions, modernizations that has gone into Indian Navy in the last about say 5-6 years is enormous, enormous. Earlier there was a time when Modi government had come to power. There was only one aircraft carrier, and that too was also on the brink of getting unserviceable and docked forever. We had nothing left. Today, we have one aircraft carrier which came from Russia. Another indigenous aircraft carrier is there now. Third one is on the way. So with those happening and numerous submarines, ships, including the nuclear submarines, indigenous nuclear submarines, all these have come to the Indian Navy, and with this, the glory is now going to come back to Indian Navy, because with these assets that Navy has got, it has got all sorts of combat arrangements, all sort of teeth that Indian Navy has to carry. It has got the submarines with the missiles on board. It has got the ships with the missiles on board. It has got even tracking of the nuclear arsenal that is coming towards India. All these have happened in this last, say, 5-6 years. So hats off to the government of India, Modi government, to have thought of the armed forces, whether it is Indian Army, Indian Navy, or Indian Air Force. This government has, given plenty of it, and especially the Navy, which has got 3 sides of India's periphery with the sea, the 3 seas that we have got. Indian Navy needs more, and it is only on path of glory that all these will be giving the assets, the teeth, the might that Indian Navy needs. And I welcome the day when India will be ruling the entire ocean that is surrounding us on the three sides, whether it is Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean, or Bay of Bengal. Bay of Bengal has got one more concern actually. The Chinese, they have been trying to mingle with Myanmar. There is a Coco Island. That Coco Island has got one of the Chinese radars that they have put it there. There is a small airstrip there, and that is one small concern that we have got. So it's a high time that now PM Modi has brought Andaman islands into the focus. Now we must develop it and develop it from all 3 points of view: defense, tourism, as well as the economy. Sooner that happens, better it is for India and better it is for the entire island, the local population. So I look forward for the day when it will be a crown, like we call Jammu Kashmir as a crown of India. Now the island, Nicobar Island, will be a crown sort of thing, a jewel in the crown of the Indian crown. So I look forward for that day, Paridhi.
Thank you so much, Group Captain Shah, for giving us your perspective. Let's also rope in Major Mohammad Ali Shah, who's still with us on the broadcast. Major Shah, what do you make?
I'm not there.
What do you make, Major Shah, of everything the Prime Minister has said, especially about Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose? He's of course spoken at great length about the Azad Hind Fauj, about how it is that the Azad Hind Fauj and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose first flew the flag of the Fauj at Andaman and Nicobar. Sir, the Prime Minister has spoken greatly about Netaji. Your reaction, sir, your comments on this tribute to our freedom fighter?
Absolutely. Netaji, unfortunately, he didn't get the kind of recognition that he deserved until now. And steadily, we are beginning to recognize the contribution of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. In fact, there was a film which was made called Rag Desh, directed by Tigmanshu Dhulia, in which I had an important part. I acted in that film called Rag Desh, which was premiered at the Rashtrapati Bhavan when it was released. So in that we have actually brought about the contribution of Netaji, and in fact Netaji and Pandit Nehru, they were friends in fact, and in fact even Mahatma Gandhi were friends in fact. So they were actually, but then the thing about, they were not friends, no, they were very much friends. In fact, Netaji's air crash, in fact, that still remains a mystery till today. Nobody knows. There have been Gubnami Baba, and there have been a lot of other people who have come forward and they have taken a claim, but we don't know the actual facts, whether it was actually Netaji or not. But yes, at the same time, I would say the kind of contribution that he actually gave towards the country, the kind of sacrifice he made, and the kind of the Indian National Army, so well trained. In fact, after the Second World War, in fact, in Japan, when the Indian National Army was actually formed, Netaji was the man behind actually taking up arms, and he says, okay, it rightly so. And in fact, so when our Prime Minister pays tribute to Subhash Chandra Bose ji, in fact, it is really, and it was very heartening in 2018 when Rose Island was renamed after Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. I think it is very, very heartening, and it is something. My thoughts on that is, yes, it is, whole nation should come forward and talk about our freedom fighters, about people who gave us the freedom that we are in today, Paridhi.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.